U.S. ambassador to the UN Nikki Haley said the U.S. government believes Assad's forces have used chemical weapons at least 50 times during the 7-year conflict. She said, "Our president has not yet made a decision about possible action in Syria, but should the United States and our allies decide to act in Syria, it will be in defense of a principle on which we all agree. All nations and all people will be harmed if we allow Assad to normalize the use of chemical weapons." She further slammed Russia for not stopping the Syrian regime. She added, "Russia alone vetoed 6 times to condemn Assad. It is Russia alone that protects the Assad regime. If Russia had lived up to its commitments, there would be no chemical weapons in Syria and we would not be here today." In an emergency UN Security Council meeting, the Moscow ambassador said Russia is the only nation to bring peace to Syria and blamed the US, UK and France for not doing anything. Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia said, "My country is the only party to be bringing peace. More than 2,500 residential places saw peace brought to them because of our efforts." U.S. Ambassador Nikki Haley warned Russia of further harm. "How many towns and cities have you introduced peace to? How many towns have you brought a ceasefire to?" Mr. Nebenzia said Russia and the Kremlin's negotiation efforts brought a ceasefire to eastern Ghouta with full conditions of allowing people to evacuate the area. He said, "The footage of this exists, but your media outlets are not showing it." The US and several allies have accused Syria of using chemical gas in Douma, killing up to 70 people on Saturday. Russian Ambassador Mr. Nebenzia went on to slam allies for not having any interest into launching an investigation into the attack. Mr. Nebenzia said, "You only have a sole interest to oust the Syrian government and more broadly to contain the Russian Federation. This is clearly seen as a conspiracy theory. Each time you unbasely blame the Russian Federation, we have never denied that you have made a certain contribution to this common objective. Some of the terrorists that have been sheltered by you are to only advance your geopolitical priorities." Ambassador Vasily Nebenzia took credit for bringing peace to Syria earlier this afternoon. The Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said the chemical attack was staged by foreign actors. Mr. Lavrov said, "We have irrefutable evidence that this was yet another performance and that security services of a country which is trying to be in the front lines of the Russophobic campaign were involved in this performance." He said Russian experts have found no trace of chemical weapons at the site of the attack. Mr. Lavrov added, "Syrian authorities were immediately blamed for the so-called attack, no proof was presented and no questions were asked." Ambassador Nikki Haley looked unconvinced of Russia's comments. "I think the conclusions were based on social media. Russian services for security visited the incident and didn't find any kind of substances there. No traces of chemical poisoning were found in local hospitals. We are interested in meeting experts there to carry out necessary tests." Prime Minister Theresa May said it is highly likely that Assad's government was responsible for the attack. Mrs. May said on Wednesday, "All the indications are that the Syrian regime was responsible. And we will be working with our closest allies on how we can ensure that those who are responsible are held to account and how we can prevent and deter the humanitarian catastrophe that comes from the use of chemical weapons in the future."